You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guest about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. I hope you're already familiar with today's CX Passport guest, Gavin Scott. Perhaps you know him from his brilliant podcast, Customer Service Gold Dust, or maybe from his public speaking at events, or even his great content on LinkedIn, or even from his recent book, Finding Gold Dust: How to Create Exceptional Customer Experiences. Now, for those who have not yet heard from him, I will tell you Gavin has a hyper focus on how to create exceptional customer experiences. With decades of experience in customer service, Gavin uses his fantastic storytelling ability to help companies and teams create the approach and skills they need to deliver great customer experiences. I've had the chance to learn from Gavin, having recently been a guest on his great podcast and also really enjoying his recent book. Hit pause, go order the book, and come back and listen to the rest of the episode. Gavin not only preaches how to deliver great CX, he provides it as well. I am so excited to have another great conversation across the pond with a fellow CX colleague. Gavin, welcome to CX Passport.
Rick, thank you. You're too kind. That introduction just covered off pretty much everything that I do. And so it's certainly great to be here. And before we crack on, you're doing some great work with your podcast as well. I'm loving the guests and the content that you're sharing. So it's great to have a conversation with you today and share some insights from the UK.
Yeah, Gavin, thanks so much. Kind words in reverse as well. It's certainly been quite a ride and I've enjoyed the heck out of it. But I'm really glad to have you on today because I know I'm going to learn a ton and I'm going to hear some great stories. So I know one thing about you, and when we talk about your approach to helping companies deliver that great customer service, you've kind of organized it into sort of 5 key areas of focus. I'd love for you to walk us through those areas.
Yeah, and there's a reason why I try to chunk things down and keep things simple. When it comes to human beings, we like things to be chunked down.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about your phone number, what's your phone number? It's 07808 05 44 33. That's my old phone number, by the way. Okay, anyone
I don't need to bleep that out.
Just think anyone tries to give me a call. But this is it. We like to chunk things down, don't we? And so I like to take that into the content that I deliver and just chunk things down into manageable amounts for the people who I work with. Mm-hmm. And so we focus on 5 key areas. And first and foremost, we've got to make sure that we kick off with the right mindset because, mindset is everything. They say in professional sport these days that 80% of success is down to mindset. Yeah. And I believe it's similar in the workplace. So I always focus on the importance of having customer service mindset for success. So that's where we start from and make sure everyone's in the right state of mind. Then we focus on the importance of getting off to a great start and that whole warm welcome. And I talk about, who's got a dog? If you left your dog at home for the whole day, when you return, what are you greeted with every single time? And you know what? Most of the dogs that I know, Rick, they will jump up, they will lick your face. They are so pleased to see you. They make you feel good. And I say to the people who attend my sessions, how well do you provide your customers with a warm and welcoming feeling? Because we can learn a lot from our 4-legged friend.
Boy, I love that.
Doesn't it? You can have that one. I mean, it's. I'm sure I read that somewhere. It might have come from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. But be more like a dog and provide that warm welcome. Yeah. So that's the second part. The third part is the importance of creating that connection. And, if you think about the world that we live in today, we've got to have that emotional connection with our customers. And so that's about listening, asking good questions, mirroring the customer in terms of their language, but just getting on the level with them so that the customer thinks, I like him or her. He's just like me. So create that connection. The next piece is around the importance of making it easy And so that's the language, that's your tone of voice, that's about being not just a problem solver, but being a problem identifier and using your knowledge, experience, and expertise to head off any future issues that customers may have and get them resolved. And then we finish off with the importance of ending on a high, providing a good, positive, lasting impression. And if I think about what happens here in the UK, Rick, is that IKEA is a famous. Well, you might have IKEA over there in the
we
US.
Absolutely do. Oh yeah.
This is it. So IKEA in the UK, when you finish doing your shop and you spend a load of money, often buying stuff that you don't actually want or need, you get a hot dog, right? And it costs you 65p.
Yeah.
And families walk out of there, even though they spent a fortune, but it's a good, positive, lasting impression. They love a hot dog. The kids do as well. And so guess what? They go back. And so
it is so amazing that closure moment at IKEA or any other place like that. Costco is another a major brand here in the US, and I think with some global locations as well. And they too have that inexpensive hot dog and a soft drink. And there are people that will make the journey to Costco just to have the hot dog and the soft drink. But it's because that positive closure moment has existed in their mind that they have locked in that this is a place I want to be, that regardless of what happened before, that last moment was so vital. So I love how you talked about, the canine welcome, right? So we've got this great welcome. We've got I will admit my daughter is a cat person. So she introduced a cat to our house. And I would say this: do not use the cats as your warm welcome model. Continue to stick in the canine space. But that you start with the warm, all the great content in the middle, and then the closure aspect of it. And so much of what you said makes a lot of sense. But you did mention at the beginning kind of the chunks and how you chunk that information up. I know that you've delivered these across so many events and so many webinars and that sort of stuff, but how do you get beyond people just sort of nodding, all right, that was interesting, to really cementing into their hearts and minds? What is it that you're kind of helping them remember this great content, not just in the minutes that follow, but in the days and the months and the years to follow after the events that you provide?
No, it's a great question, Rick, and there's a few responses that I'm going to give. The first one is that my granddad used to tell great stories, right? Yeah. And I mean, we're talking years and years ago, and the amount of times that I've recalled some of my granddad's stories to my kids. Yeah, I can't imagine how many times I've done it, but it's great stories that really work. And there's something about a story that helps to make some of the content that we share memorable. People love stories. And so what I do is I share and I tell great stories. And when I left one of the organizations that I used to work for, I became a self-taught memory expert. And I was helping kids to get better exam results. And one of the tools that we used was mind mapping. Okay, so using great color, using great visuals, using trigger images, and the kids were just blown away when it comes to how much information they could retain and recall. Right? They couldn't believe it. And I thought, how can I fuse that into some of the content that I now share in the corporate space? And so what I do in every event that I share is I use hand-drawn visual images. I've got a graphic illustrator, a guy called John Montgomery, and he's just brilliant. And he puts all of the stuff that I share down on paper into a visual that helps to make the content sticky. So good color, good visuals, and great stories. That's the approach that I take.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, that's one of the things that I really noticed in your book, Finding Gold Dust. And that was how it's approached story by story by story. And the moments, the teaching, the elements that you're sharing in there really resonate when I think of the stories that are involved in that book. And I think a lot of that is used, even take it into the employee engagement and employee experience space. It feels like a lot of times we forget, and I just mean the general we, when we're sharing information, we get so factual. It's almost like maybe Google has messed up the way we think about things, that it's, if I want to find a piece of information, then I receive that piece of information back. But it really is the story that surrounds that piece of information that allows us to retain that piece of information and really get memorable and just remember. I remember the stories and the themes behind the stories often more than I remember the facts that are behind those facts.
And this is it. And so when you think about it, regardless of your work in the customer experience space, but if you want people to connect with what's going on, then rather than have a huge number of slides with bullet points and lots of content, then just create some great stories. And organizations who do that have that narrative and help their guys and girls to understand the why. By using stories, then people feel as though either they're more connected, they know how they can contribute, they therefore give more discretionary effort, and that in itself is going to provide great outcomes for a business. So I think stories are key.
And exactly, and I've seen that. So I think back to a former employer, great place, and one of the things that they did such a great job of is at their town halls that they would elevate customer story and they would bring customer story into that. And I mean, some of the more beautiful stories where they'd go and film and interview the customer. And I'm not exaggerating when I say there were tears shed, mine included, for some of these beautiful stories. And we're talking about home equity, right? How can you get emotional about home equity? And yet there were these stories there. And I think about, so we're talking about memorable. And a lot of times that's a word that's used in place of things like special or meaningful or delightful. But it really is that special experience becomes something that sits in our memories forever. So thinking about how a company can deliver that, how do you help companies create those memorable moments that then become the origin stories of stories later in their company history?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because people, talk about the importance of, delighting customers, wowing customers, creating exceptional customer experiences. But sometimes it's the simple things that make the biggest difference, right? And, when it comes to, consistently getting the basics right, that's a phrase that, I've been, focused on and using for a number of years. Came from one of my old bosses, a guy called John Casely. You got to consistently get the basics right. And I think if you want to create memorable experiences, then yes, get the basics right and do it in a human way. Right. And make that connection, own up to your mistakes, be vulnerable, hold your hands up, but just connect, have some common ground, and create that liking factor. And I think it's stuff like that that's really going to help to make sure that those experiences are memorable. So hey, listen, this stuff it's simple to say, but often quite a challenge to get right. But this is not rocket science. It's about consistently getting the basics right and focusing on the most important things, and doing it with whilst being human at the same time. That's the approach that I would certainly encourage.
You've said a couple things in there, and I want to go back to the human point there. But one of the things that I was grinning about is you said, it's not rocket science. And sometimes I chuckle with some of my fellow CX colleagues that I'm like, man, I hope that, clients don't figure that out at some point, because then I'm going to be out of work, right? Because the fundamentals really are not rocket science. The fundamentals really are simple. And it continues to amaze me how sometimes there is such a challenge to get back to those simplicity. And in some cases, it's because you're removing layers and layers of complexity to get to that simplicity. But something you said resonated with me, and that was the memorable moments delivered in a human way. And why is it that the humanity seems so removed from our experiences today? It shouldn't be that being human is memorable, and yet it is. Why do you think that's the case?
I mean, I don't know. When you think about what happens, in the CX world, often people might have to focus a bit too much on productivity, and they might not get the balance right when it comes to, focusing on quality and quantity. And so often customers might feel as they're being just churned through a system. They might hear the same sort of questions, on a regular basis, and often guess and assume they know what the answer might be, and therefore deliver an incorrect solution. And listen, when it comes to the stuff that we do in the CX world, it's a hard task, it's a hard job. But I think those who are successful just have that ability to press the reset button, shake things off, change their physiology, and then go, okay, right, this next customer, sorry, this is the first time they've spoke to us.
Yeah,
so let's make it happen for them.
That is an absolutely brilliant point, because talking about it conceptually at a customer experience, customer service layer is one thing, but helping the humans themselves, the individual, the frontline, the most valuable person in that customer relationship, be able to do that with the surrounding tools, the systems, the processes, the simple encouragement and engagement to help them do exactly what you described, and that is customer next. Okay, whatever happened, past, customer next. And I'm going to pivot us here a little bit. Oh, sorry. No, go, Gavin.
And if you think about it, sometimes the number of systems that people have open at the same time when they're speaking to customers, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so they can be easily distracted, and therefore they lose that element of being present. And miss out on some of the gold dust that comes in a conversation, often step over it or not even hear it. So it's not an easy job.
Boy, that is very, very true. When you hear and experience and watch and do a side by side and see people toggling through 14 different systems to address a customer, how on earth can we expect them to deliver that gold dust if it's not simple for them? Now, I am going to pivot us here because we do like talking about travel here on CX Passport. And I know it has provided a source of memorable moments for me. I imagine it has done the same for you. So I'm curious, how have your travels created, or how have you discovered those memorable moments, and how has that inspired your approach to customer experience?
I mean, if I think about the warm welcome, we talked about this before, probably the best warm welcome that I ever experienced while traveling, Rick, was when we went on our honeymoon, and back in 2005 to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Right. And we got off that plane there, and it was like someone was stood there with a hairdryer blowing hot air into my face. It was so hot. I was like, wow, this is hot. And we went to our chosen complex where we were staying for a 2-week period. And when we arrived, we noticed there was a band at the front reception. And we thought, hello, what are these guys and girls doing? And as soon as my wife opened the car door, right, they started to play "Here Comes the Bride."
Oh.
And my wife, she sort of stopped in her tracks as she was about to get out of the car, and she looked at me and she went, "Well done, love, well done." and I was sitting there, Rick, going, "Oh my God, I know nothing about this, but you know what? I'm going to have to take this one, And but yeah, we walked in, and it was like my wife was smiling from ear to ear. We got to the front reception. Lady stood there, looking beautiful, and she says, "Mr. and Mrs. Scott, congratulations on your wedding day, and welcome." It was the Ritz. Welcome to the Ritz Carlton Sharm el-Sheikh. And within 60 seconds of arriving, Rick, I thought to myself, "This is the best decision that we've made."
Well, Gavin, you've had some great travels there, but let's take a little change of pace. If you're going down to Egypt or anywhere else in the world, sometimes it's nice to take a little break. I would love for you to join me here in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly here and hopefully have some fun. Now, the answer to this first question you may have already answered, but I'm curious, a dream travel location from your past?
So for me, a dream travel location from my past is got to be France. We love going there with the kids. The kids love it. The culture, the food, the sun, the wine every now and again, Rick.
Of course.
And even when we buy a bottle of wine in the UK now, we often joke and I say, "This one's straight from the vineyard," and the kids love it. The kids love it.
That's awesome. I am very jealous of my European friends and colleagues that you could legitimately just take a train and be in France, or a quick flight. To us, it's a journey of a lifetime. But I'm certainly jealous of some of the things that y'all have, those dream travel locations. What about the future? What's a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
Well, do you know what? We booked a trip to Thailand. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Koh Samui or Koh Samui? I can't even say the name of it. I mean, there was a small island off Thailand. I think it's called Koh Samui or something like that. Right?
Yeah, Koh Samui. Yeah, that's one of them.
It.
Yeah.
Yes, we booked a trip to go there, and then my wife got pregnant.
Oh.
Right. And we realized, which was a wonderful thing,
right?
But we realized that we were going to be heading across there when she was going to be heavily pregnant, and so we had to cancel. And of course, yes, the kids have arrived, and we've not been able to go to there just yet. But that's got to be a dream location that we want to get back involved with and go there one day.
Boy, you get there. Absolutely. Thailand is one of my favorite places in the world. I've had some family members who have lived there for a period of time. It is certainly some of the best eating, and Koh Samui is one of the most beautiful places I've been. And so definitely get there. Get that on your plans. Book that trip. Get out there soon. I mentioned eating. It is one of my favorite places to eat. But what is a favorite thing for you to eat?
Do you know what? I'm someone who will pretty much eat anything, Rick. But one of the key things that we do enjoy having with the family is a curry on a Saturday night.
Nice.
The kids like the korma. Mum and Dad, we have the chicken tikka masala.
Oh, yeah.
But we love having that with a bit of naan bread, some poppadoms, and some little side plates as well. So curry's got to be the favorite at the moment. But yeah, we certainly enjoy having one of those together as a family.
Love it, and I love how you're raising global eaters as well, and your kids that they're getting to enjoy the globe. But in that vein, what is something that your parents forced you to eat but you hated as a kid?
There wasn't many things that I would turn my nose up at.
Okay.
But if we're going to push me, I'll probably say that back in the day, I didn't enjoy bread and butter pudding, right?
Okay.
Bread and butter pudding. Whether you've heard what that is, it's a pudding with bread in, and it just didn't make sense to me, right?
That's hilarious.
And it's got raisins in, it's got other bits and bobs, but I just couldn't get it around my head as to why this was a dessert. And so I didn't really enjoy it back when I was a kid, but I do enjoy having some of it now when I'm a bit older.
It's funny. Now, as described, no, I've not had bread and butter pudding, but as described, let's see, it's got bread, it's got butter, it's got pudding. Those are three things that I'm on board with, but I guess it's the rest and the bits and bobs, as you say, that are in there.
Yeah.
What is, now you can't use your phone, but what is one travel item you will not leave home without?
Well, this is me being completely vulnerable with you, Rick, because I wouldn't leave home without my Johnson's baby lotion. My mum years ago, she said, if you want to just brighten your face up, love, then just get a bit of Johnson's baby lotion, put it on your face, and it makes you look a lot brighter. And that was when I was about 12. And now every day, Rick, if I don't put my Johnson's baby lotion on, my face just cracks up. So there you go. There's one for everyone. What's he doing with Johnson's baby lotion? But you know what? I love it, and it's good stuff.
All right, Gavin, let's go back to those memorable moments that we were talking about before the First Class Lounge. You provided a memorable moment when I was a guest on your brilliant podcast, Customer Service Gold Dust. Now, I remind listeners, hit pause. Go search up Customer Service Gold Dust on your favorite podcast site, mash that subscribe button and download button, and then come on back and hear the rest of Gavin's wisdom after you hit play here. But after I was a guest on your episode, a few weeks later, I got this package. It had your book. It had a gold candy bar and some gold glitter or gold dust. I will never forget that. So what made you decide to create your own surprise and delight moments?
I think for me, if we operate in the customer experience world and we're experts in that space, then we've got to walk the talk, right? We've got to show up and demonstrate some of the key things that are going to create those exceptional customer experiences. And so that's why I package up the book. I send it out. The idea came when I first launched the book. There's a lady called Julie Bales from the mastermind group that I'm a member of, and she sent me a box of gold dust, right?
Okay.
And it had everything in everything that was in there had the label gold on it. Mm-hmm. I got everything, and I thought that's a great idea. How can we make that make that into a box of gold dust for my customers, and certainly for my podcast guests? And so that's where it came from. And it's just about being congruent, in terms of what we do, what we say, and some of the actions that we take. I want to make sure that I'm walking the talk, and so I'm glad that hit the mark. And it certainly got some good feedback. It's a talk trigger as well. People talk about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the two thoughts that came to mind when I saw that. One was just how special it was. It made me feel special. It made me feel honored. And I guess a side feeling that I had is, I really need to up my game as a podcaster. So I'm not sure you may be receiving a CX Passport package, but maybe sometime in the future I'll catch up with your brilliant wisdom and practices there. But that second thing, and I think it's what's attributed to companies as well, is if it's done authentically, if it's perceived as fake or calculated, then I don't think it comes off. But companies that deliver those surprise and delight moments, that's exactly what happens. And then it's a talking point. I know I went out and shared it on LinkedIn, and I've seen others share this on LinkedIn and other social media aspects, and it amplifies your brand. But there's just something about the authenticity with which you did it that tells me that this wasn't just some marketing ploy. It really was kind of at your heart of the surprise and delight. And then the corporate benefits, if you will, come out of that later. And I see companies benefiting from that same thing when they do it right.
Yeah, and you've got to make sure you get the complete package right. It can't just be seen as a tick in the box approach. And so, certainly with my guests on my podcast, the whole experience, I'd like to think, is one that's memorable and easy and effortless for them. And so the book that gets sent in the post is just the cherry on top, or the icing on the cake, whatever they say. So but you've got to do it in a genuine, sincere, and authentic way, and not be sending them and saying, "Would you mind putting that on LinkedIn, or can you do me a post on that?" It's just a case of, okay, listen, if people do, great, and if they don't, that's also not an issue, as long as they enjoy the gift that's been sent to them.
Boy, that's a great point, because I have received things. I've received items, sometimes it's just a plain old order, but it can be something that's perceived as sort of a gifty kind of thing. And it'll have a card inserted in there, share this moment with X, Y, and Z. Well, no, then it feels like, oh, now you're manipulating me. Didn't feel like, Gavin, what you did was absolutely brilliant. Now, I suspect that many of our listeners don't know this about you, but you've had actually a pretty impactful side career as a soccer, or let me be respectful to my guest, football ref. I'd love to know more about your reffing experience, and maybe even explore how that's influenced your approach to customer experience.
Yeah, so I started refereeing in 2003. Okay. And then I stopped in 2012 when we decided to have more kids. Mm-hmm. I took a break from it. My kids are a bit older now, and so I've started again. And I love it. And I just like keeping fit, like you, Rick, with your running. I just want to make sure that I keep myself active, so that I still feel young, and I want to be a good role model for the kids. And so it's important that Dad looks after himself and stays in shape. But it's certainly, if you think about refereeing, you do have a large number of challenging conversations that you have to deal with, right?
Boy, are you the master of understatement. That is so English, which are just very understated. A series of difficult conversations. I've seen reffing. I know how difficult that is. Wow. But you're right.
And even just this weekend, I mean, this is just hot off the press. When I was doing a fixture on Saturday, it was a decent fixture, FA appointment. Nice. And the manager wanted to have a conversation with us at the end of the game. Okay. And, you knew that wasn't going to be an easy one. And I said to the three officials, I said, listen, when that manager comes in, right, we all sit down. Okay. No one stands up. Because if you think about it, Rick, if you're stood up, right, and someone's being quite aggressive and you're face to face, you get more aggressive.
Yeah.
But if you're quite aggressive and frustrated, and the person you're speaking to is sat down in more of a submissive stance, it just takes the sting out of things.
Interesting.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I said, guys, we all sit down, okay? We listen to what's being shared, and they're going to have high energy, and so we meet them with high energy back and non-confrontational language. Yeah. And that is going to reduce the intensity of the challenging conversation. And so, that's just one example of how I use some of my, my customer experience skills in the refereeing world, just to try and see if I can reduce the intensity of challenging conversations. So high energy back, non-confrontational language, and that reduces the intensity. So,
gosh. Who would have thought? And I don't think we really think of it that way. And that's why I wanted to bring up the reffing thing, is how even a world of reffing, customer experience, customer service, and specific tactical approaches to it can have meaningful impact on, I guess in that case, you could refer to your customer as the manager of that team. That manager is expecting consistency. That manager is expecting fairness. The manager is expecting you as a ref to kind of control and own that game, and to own up to the decisions that you're making throughout that. And so to deliver that in a way that honors them as a customer is something I hadn't thought of. Maybe there's a whole new business angle for us here, and that is providing customer experience and customer service training to the reffing community. I've seen some examples where some of those folks could benefit from it. But as you know, I've got a son that's in the reffing world, and I respect the heck out of the work that y'all are doing. It's brilliant and difficult work for sure.
No, it certainly is, but I'm sure there's lots of ways that we could link in refereeing with some of the things that we do in the customer experience world. I mean, if you think about the 17 laws of the game, you need to know that as a referee. And in customer experience, that's about knowing the process, right? Knowing the procedures, right?
Yeah.
If you think about, occasionally I make a mistake as a referee, and if I argue the case and claim that I didn't make a mistake, then that's going to cause more of an issue. And I just say, you know what? I got that wrong. I'll make sure that I get the next one right. Yeah. And then I run off.
Yeah, you're gone.
and they go, okay, ref, fair enough. But that in itself, that just saying, you know what, mate, you're probably right. I got that one wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
That just kills the conversation. There's no more of a challenging conversation anymore. It's like, okay, ref, fair play. Great. Yeah. And then away you go. Yeah. And they respect that, just being human and being vulnerable, and just putting your hands up and say, yeah, I got that one wrong.
Gavin, I think I just gave you perhaps either the inspiration or the nugget for your next book. I think you've got a reffing and customer service, customer experience book in you. Just needs to come out someday. We are out of time, and it makes me sad, but we are out of time. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Gavin, from the beginning, talking about the 5 areas of focus for delivering great customer service, to really understanding how companies can deliver meaningful moments. And talk about meaningful moments, I'm still there were a few goosebumps, and it wasn't even my honeymoon, listening to your story of the Ritz Carlton there in Egypt, which now I want to go book a trip there because of your story. So another reason to create those surprise and delight moments for customers. To closing out, talking about reffing. Gavin, it was great. I enjoyed it. I always enjoy my conversations with you. And I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. How can people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
The best place to get in touch is to hunt me down on LinkedIn. Gavin Scott on LinkedIn with 2 T's in Scott. My website is www.gavinscott.me. Nice and simple. Of course, Rick's mentioned the book, Finding Gold Dust. We've got the podcast, the Customer Service Gold Dust podcast. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to get in touch. So yes, please reach out.
Awesome. And I will put all of that information in the show notes. So check those show notes out, but be sure and go over there, grab his book, have a listen to the podcast. I promise you will come away with gold dust. It is brilliant. Gavin, thank you so much for the time today. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Rick. And listen, just one final thing. It's great to have a conversation. It's great to have connected with you. Elaine Lee put us in contact with each other a few months back, and since then, I think we've shared plenty of contacts together. So it's good to, it's good to have a positive working relationship. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on today.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX4CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX4CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.